What's up, Reskies? Damocles here, and today I am bringing you my Solo Queue tier list for Pokemon Unite. This is for the brand new rank season that is dropping soon. I figured you guys would want an update so that you guys know what are the best possible characters to be carrying you solo to Masters in Pokemon Unite. As always, if you like this content, make sure you hit the notification button, hit the subscribe button, and like and comment down below. Also, I am finally doing that Nintendo eShop gift card giveaway. I will put the link in the description a few minutes after this video goes live. You're basically just going to go click on this gleam.io link. You can do some actions and enter into the giveaway for this Nintendo eShop gift card. This one is a US eShop gift card. I don't think that should be a problem, but just letting you know. And then at 30K subs, hopefully we can do another giveaway, or 40 or 50. I like to do them every 10K or so. But that is going to be what we're going to be doing for the giveaway. So make sure, if you haven't jumped on the bandwagon, hop on it now. And sometime within the next week, I'm also going to drop a random gift code just in one of the videos. Just randomly drop it. I'm not going to say anything about it. So first come, first serve on that one. But without further ado, let's hop into the actual tier list. And thank you guys so much for all the support. This is truly for you guys. Okay, so the Solo Queue tier list. If you haven't seen my last tier list, you can go check that one out to see, what I change around. But basically what I go off of is the pure solo carry potential, right? I'm talking if your teammates are absolutely doing nothing and not helping you in any way, which happens a lot in Pokemon Unite, what characters are going to be the best and what characters are going to be the worst for doing that. So these are going to be very different from overall tier lists or competitive tier lists because you have teammates that you can rely on. So I just want to put that out there immediately. So starting off, let's go with Cinderace. Okay, Cinderace, I'm going to put in S tier. Cinderace does a massive amount of damage. It is one of the best attackers in the entire game right now, one of the best sustained damage dealers in the entire game right now. It has fantastic crit damage. It has fantastic objective damage. The reason why it's in S tier and not can carry 1v9 tier is because it is predominantly single target focused, and sometimes that is just a little rough when you are trying to solo carry a game. You can get kited out, or you can get focused on by certain tanks or whatever. And so for that reason, it's not in Can Carry 1v9 tier, but it is one of the best attackers in the entire game right now. And if you want to check out the best build for it, you can head over to the channel. I'll put a link down below or whatever. But Cinderace, fantastic character. You can absolutely do no wrong with Cinderace currently. Let's do Sylveon. Sylveon, I'm going to put in... I'm going to put Sylveon in the S tier as well. Sylveon got basically a massive nerf from the last time I made my Solo Queue tier list video because the damage output of this Pokemon was insane at release, like absolutely face roll insane, and they basically cut its damage massively. The benefits of this character are that it gets its Unite move basically before any other damage dealer in the entire game at level 8, so you can go and prioritize getting Dreadnought and having a Unite move for those Dreadnought fights. So in that vein, it is very good, especially if you can snowball from that point. But if you if you aren't able to do that, it does not do as much super easy damage as it used to. But the benefit of this Pokemon in particular, it is a special attacker. It is a sustained damage special attacker. It has a really bloated kit, right? It has totally fantastic movement while it's actually using its abilities. You can kite people away. You have Nullifying Agent in Calm Mind, or whatever build you feel like going, Mystical Fire or Hyper Voice or otherwise. It's just a great all-around character, and definitely a solid pickup for Solo Queue in particular. Who else do we got here? Pikachu. I'm going to put Pikachu in the B tier. The reason being is that Pikachu, despite getting some buffs recently, and despite its damage output in the laning phase and early game being really fantastic, after the laning phase, it goes off a cliff basically in terms of effectiveness and usage. The Unite move is really easy to interrupt and CC Pikachu out of it. It does a lot of damage, and CC wise, Pikachu is phenomenal. You basically just spam Electro Balls and Thunder at people, but that is what it becomes later on in the game. So if you're trying to carry a game from point A to point B, you lose effectiveness around A.5. That is the worst possible analogy I can give, but I think you guys will get what I'm saying. Pikachu, absolute monster in lane, can really snowball games and do great early on, but loses effectiveness later on, and you need that effectiveness when we're talking about Zapdos and closing out games. So for that reason, Pikachu is in B tier. Also, the objective damage, because it's not a sustained damage dealer like a Sylveon is in terms of special attack damage, I gotta just bump it down a little bit. But this is an improvement from the last tier list. So it was in C in the last tier list. So still moving on up there. Who else do we got here? I'm going to do Gengar. Gengar, I'm actually going to move up to A tier. Last tier list, it was in B tier, but Gengar's seen a slight resurgence with the buffs that it got, namely to its Spell Vamp, but also I think people are coming around to the idea of how much damage Dream Eater and Shadow Ball build does, but also because of the Spell Vamp changes, it gave a lot more survivability to people that were still running Hex and Sludge. So overall, Gengar's just seen a little bit more of a bump up in play, and if you start to pop off on Gengar, you can really snowball games out of control. Shadow Ball allows you to deal a large amount of damage early game and poke people off of points from relative safety, and then later on in the game, you can just one-shot people with Shadow Ball Dream Eater combo. So for that reason, Gengar is going to be in A tier for me. It's decent early game depending on the build that you go, or at least it's better than it used to be, but it remains effective throughout the course of the game. It's just it's a little bit more single target focused depending on which build you are going, but I do have a full build on my channel if you want to go check that out. Also, I'm sorry if I sound congested. I am sick right now, so I'm just trying to get through this video for you guys, okay? So I'm sorry for the sniffles in advance. Who else do we got here? I'm going to put Alolan Ninetales. I'm putting Alolan Ninetales in the D tier, guys. This character, with the advent of so many of these strong picks, I think Alolan Ninetales, from a solo queue perspective, has really taken quite a dive. It's just not a fantastic solo queue carry character in my opinion. There is that Avalanche Blizzard type build that you could go that does a little bit more damage, but overall you aren't seeing a lot of Alolan Ninetales anymore, and it's for a reason. It's just the damage output overall is not that high. The Unite move is not all that impactful, even though it does have some interesting combos with Mamoswine and stuff. You're not seeing Mamoswine too much either, but Alolan Ninetales overall is in need of some love right now. It's by no means it's not like a terrible Pokemon. It's great, especially if you have like a solid team because of the slows and everything, but if your team is not doing anything and the enemy team is remotely competent, you're going to have a real hard time impacting the game if you're playing as Alolan Ninetales. So I got to drop it down to D tier from C tier where it was last week. Okay. I'm going to put... Who should we do next? Let's do the Chomp. I think I'm going to do this. Solo Queue. Trying to think solo queue. Chomp was pray your team was good tier last week. Or not last week, but last tier list. You know what? Let's come back to Chomp. Gardevoir. Still in pray your team is good tier. I'm sorry, Gardevoir mains. I love you. But Gardevoir, unfortunately, in terms of solo queue performance, you are really not impactful in a game in any way for, 4-5 minutes, and unfortunately with how fast Pokemon Unite snowballs and the early game focus that is just innate in Pokemon Unite, it is a little bit on the rough side to play as Gardevoir in solo queue. Now that is not to say that Gardevoir is in itself a terrible character. I've gone into a whole video about this. It's just power curves, guys. Like really, if you are playing solo queue and you want to carry a game, you got to start off strong. And missing that first Dreadnought, missing that first Rotom. You basically have to as Gardevoir, unless your enemy team is massively misplaying and feeding you a bunch of kills as routes, then maybe you can do something. But the reality is that even if you go Psyshock and you come online a little bit earlier, Gardevoir, you are basically relying on your team to get you through those first couple minutes of the game, because you can't actually impact the game in any way, shape, or form as routes or even as Kirlia at certain stages. So late game, Gardevoir hits like a truck. The problem is that Pokemon Unite is super early game focused, super mid game focused, and Gardevoir just needs help to get there. And that's not a position you want to be in solo queue. You're basically crossing your fingers that your team can do a good job, and that's why pray your team is good tier. Let's see. Machamp right now, I'm actually going to drop Machamp down because of the effectiveness of some of the other junglers and damage dealers in the game. Putting Machamp into D tier. It is a very fun character to play. I do have that like more damage focused build which is pretty silly. It's just it's in need of some love right now, guys. It's really in need of some love right now. You can go and impact team fights with your Unite move. You can try and mess the enemy team up in choke points or at Zapdos, and it's effective there. It's great there. It's just outside of that, you really are more oriented towards just being a CC bot. And unfortunately, with how good some of the other all-rounders are that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, Machamp just kind of falls by the wayside and gets dumpstered by those other all-rounders. So you're kind of just hurting yourself and hurting your team if you're going and picking Machamp as opposed to one of those other characters. Again, guys, this is for solo queue only. Machamp is not a terrible character by any means. It's just, in comparison to the rest of the roster, Machamp is in a bit of a rough spot right now. I really think that they should give it a couple of quality of life buffs because the damage drop that it got in its last round of nerfs seems to be impacting it more than it initially seemed to. Okay, first one can carry 1v9 tier, Zeraora. Zeraora is just the embodiment of being able to do a little bit of everything. It's phenomenal early game, its base damage is quite insane. It doesn't really have a bad build path. The creation of Razor Claw, well, the addition of Razor Claw into Pokemon Unite really buffed up both Spark and Volt Switch. Goodness, why can't I remember the name? Wild Strikes? Always go Discharge. I'm sorry. A Wild Charge. Goodness. I use it so little that I could barely remember the name. Don't use Wild Charge. Wild Charge is a trap. Always go Discharge, but you're happy to go Volt Switch or Spark, depending on what kind of build you're running. This character is just fantastic in team fights. It's fantastic early game. It's fantastic late game. You can just one-shot carries. It counters some of the other roster picks like Greninja and stuff like that. And Gengar is just a phenomenal pick overall, and so you cannot go wrong if you are picking Zeraora currently in solo queue. Just don't run XP share. Don't be one of those people, guys. Okay? Alrighty. Let's do Cramorant. Cramorant, I'm putting it... I'm putting Cram... No, I'm going to put Cram in B tier because it's kind of a similar situation to Pikachu. Cram lost some of its laning effectiveness with its most recent nerfs and lost some Unite move damage as well. And that is really what you brought Cram to the party for, right? You brought it so that it could steal lane camps from the enemy team. And the problem is that when you nerf those aspects that help it secure those experience wild Pokemon camps early on in the game, you hurt it overall because that's what it's being brought to the party for. So it's still a solid pick. It still deals damage. I don't think Dive is that great still. I think it needs more range or more quality life buffs. Overall, Cram is just in an okay spot. It's very much like Pikachu where in lane, you're going to do a good job, most likely. But outside of laning, it's a little tough to get by. And are you going to be able to solo carry a game in the same way that you would with a pre-nerf Cram? I don't think so. So for that reason, Cramorant is in B tier. Mamoswine. Mamoswine, I'm dropping Mamoswine to C tier from B tier. I just think that if you are playing... actually, let's think about this. You know what? No. I'll put Mamoswine in B tier. The reason why I'm going back and forth on it, is I just don't think it's wise to play defenders and supports if you are going into solo queue. A lot of people at me in the comment section about talking about this in my solo queue tips video, which you can go check out. But really, every team should have a support and a tank, right? But the reality of the situation is that I'm making a tier list based off of you in solo queue. And so I'm not going to recommend you go and play a defender, because the reality is that you're going and you're putting all the effort in actually carrying the game on the rest of your team. So I just think supports and defenders on the whole are very low on the solo queue tier list. This is solo queue, remember, because if you don't do anything, basically, if your laner doesn't do anything in lane, you are a sitting duck, because there's only so much that you can actually do as a defender. Mamoswine is, I'm going to keep it in B tier, simply because, you know what, no. I'm sticking with my gut. I'm going to put it in C tier, simply because even though Mamoswine has solid early game damage and skirmish potential, and it really helps your laner get going early on, and it has some decent playmaking potential, at the end of the day, it still is a defender. And if your laner, say you're laning with a Greninja or a Cinderace that just walks off or keeps walking into the enemy team, and you're going up against two people, you're not going to be able to win that 1v2 that easily as a defender. You're just not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to have that impact on the map. And because Mamoswine is one of those later evolving characters, even though it does have a solid early game, your effectiveness is greatly diminished because you're playing a defender. So I have to put it in the C tier. What else we got here? Wiggly. Wiggly is in Pray Your Team is Good tier. You're going to see a lot more characters in this Pray Your Team is Good tier, simply because I just have had time to think about the tier list, guys. And the reality of the situation is that when you are playing supports, you are really, really hyper dependent on your team doing things for you. Even if you are the best support player in the world, if you don't have a laner or a jungler that is actively dealing damage and doing stuff on the map, then your game is effectively over. That's just the reality of the situation. So for that reason, Wiggly is in the bottom tier. That's not to say overall Wiggly is a bad character necessarily. Its Unite move is really nice, and it does okay damage and has okay CC. It's just from a solo queue perspective, you don't want to be picking that character. Very similar situation, I feel, to Blissy. I do feel like Blissy is a little bit of a better option. Do I want to put Blissy in the Pray Your Team is Good tier? I feel like I have to. So the difference between Blissy and a Wiggly, and why I'm debating putting Blissy up in the D tier, is that even if your team is bad, Blissy can go and use Helping Hands to try and basically force them to be good, right? You can try and save teammates that are playing badly with your Unite move. She just has a lot of different useful skills that are helpful for taking objectives and doing everything else. But the reality of the situation, even though I like Blissy, I just think that if you even saying all those things, if your team is not doing good, you're just going to have a rough time, and you're not going to be able, obviously you can't solo carry a game as Blissy. If the whole team goes to Zapdos and your team is AFK in base, can you go and actually have an effective use on that Zapdos? And the reality is no. So Blissy is going to be in the Pray Your Team is Good tier as well. D tier, I am putting Slowbro. Slowbro is a fantastic anti-carry. Make no mistake about it. And so in certain circumstances, you definitely can go and see a situation in which, okay, the enemy team's carry is getting super fed. I can go and at least zero them out of a fight. But the thing is, it's really more single target focused, right? You're going to be trying to land those surfs. You're going to be trying to land those telekinesis, those confusion rays, the slow beams, excuse me. And even though you can zero out one of the enemy carries, after that you kind of are just, you're just kind of running around. And you can go Amnesia and Scald. That got a little bit of a buff, but the reality is that in solo queue, it's just not going to happen. The difference between Slowbro and Mamoswine is, at least Mamoswine, the early game, it does like a solid job of laning, and some of its moves are more AoE focused, so that at least you can try to impact an entire team fight instead of just one particular carry. But that's just the situation that Slowbro's in right now. They really nerfed him and gutted that character, in my opinion. So that's the situation there. Back up in S tier, Greninja. Greninja is still a super solid pick. I think the go-to build right now is Double Team and Water Shuriken still. It just does a phenomenal amount of damage. It's very safe to play. You have a lot of different escape options. You have some obnoxious bloat in that kit as far as slowing basic attacks are concerned, executes are concerned. You could also go stealth plus the surf build. That's still a viable option. It has multiple ways of escaping, multiple ways of engaging. It's just overall phenomenal solo carry pick. You cannot go wrong if you're playing Greninja currently. Who else do we got here? Absol. Where did I put you? I'm gonna put Absol in the A tier, dropping it down from S tier. Best early game character in the entire game, bar none. It's absolutely insane. This character is nuts. It is dropping down from S tier simply because I just think that in comparison to some of the other choices, they have more staying power throughout the course of the game, whereas Absol does get squishier as the game goes on, and you have that potential for getting blown up by the enemy team. The reason why it was over there before is really that early game is so crucial in Pokemon Unite. So if you can go and dumpster people as Absol early on, and keep the enemy team behind, secure, even the first 2 Dreadnoughts. Even if your team is playing bad, you kind of force them to be good by going and getting those Dreadnoughts, and hopefully they can take over the game after the fact there. It's not in B tier in the same league as a Cram and a Pikachu, simply because its early game is so overwhelmingly powerful and it's physical based, that you have great objective taking potential, you have great one-shot potential. It's just the best early game Pokemon, period. And it can transition that into the later stage of the game. It just becomes a little bit more squishy. So Absol is dropping down to A tier for that reason. S tier as well, Venusaur. Venusaur saw some nerfs to its healing in the name of Giga Drain. It is not necessarily bad right now. Well, obviously it's not bad, it's an S tier. But the nerfs didn't really hurt that Petal Dance Giga Drain build that much. It just hurt it enough that the healing isn't going to allow you to straight up 1v9 as easily anymore. But also, the Solar Beam got a massive buff. So it does a bajillion damage now. So you can go either way. You can go poke style build with Solar Beam, or you can go and run the Petal Dance Giga Drain build that everybody seems to be running, and it's still a fantastic build. It's just I don't think it's as sustainable as it was before because of the healing nerfs, but you still have the damage reduction and the movement speed and everything. It's still a phenomenal character. So if you're going special attacker, can't go wrong if you're picking Venusaur. Who else do we got here? Charizard. I'm actually going to bump Charizard up to S tier, in my opinion. I think that the buffs that it's received over time to Fire Blast and its Unite move change didn't really help it. I think it hurt it in terms of objective stealing potential, but the overall damage boost when you're using that Unite move and the solo pick potential of Charizard makes it a really solid pick for solo queue in both lane and in the jungle, in my opinion. It just has phenomenal sustained physical damage. I have a full Charizard build in my, on my channel if you want to check it out. Links in the description. But I just think that the anti-carry potential of this character is really insane right now. Because it's like, if you look at all these other characters that are top tier picks, they all fear Charizard. That's the reality of the situation. They all fear a Charizard that Unite moves them, and that is a massive tool for Charizard to have in reality. Has solid clear speed, has solid fighting potential early and late game, and again with that Unite move you can just 100 to 0 the enemy backline, the enemy squishies, all these other top tier characters. So for that reason I'm putting Charizard up in the S tier, so shout out Charizard mains. You made it, guys, you made it. Let's see here. Blastoise. Blastoise was an A tier before. I'm dropping Blastoise down to B tier. It saw some nerfs, guys. That's the reality of the situation. I told you those nerfs would be coming, and it is a defender. It's still a phenomenal defender. It still does a large amount of damage with its Hydro Pump and Rapid Spin, as well as its Unite move. And so for that reason, it's not going to be in C and D tier like Mamo and Snorlax is. The damage output of this character is still really high for a defender, but would you pick this in a solo queue game? If you were gonna pick a defender, this would probably be the one that you pick. So for that reason, I'm gonna put it into B tier, as well as Crustle. I'm going to put Crustle in B tier. This is a drop down from the last tier list. Crustle is just really obnoxious if you're especially going that scoring build that I just dropped yesterday, because you can kind of just ignore everything that's happening in the game, pop your Unite move, pop Buddy Barrier, and just score on the enemy team right in their face, and there's nothing they can do about it. Whereas Blastoise gets its kind of bump in the tier list is due to its damage, Crustle gets its bump due to the sheer annoyance of having to try and chase down a Crustle with Shell Smash and trying to stop a 10,000 HP Crustle that is scoring 100 points on your main base when you are trying not to lose a game. So that's why Crustle is going to be in the B tier. Who else do we got here? Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime, I'm going to put Mime in B tier as well. I think that the Mime's damage output is super solid. It's not really a support in the other ways that those other supports are supports, right? Mime is more of that fighting support. It has the ability to literally drag whatever your laner is over the finish line. You can go, and even if someone's not paying attention, Mr. Mime can go and just one-shot someone who's on the enemy team with a nicely placed wall and a confusion, and if the enemy team's carry is getting super fed, you can just go and Unite move on top of them, and it's going to remove them from a fight, similar to Charizard. So it really has some decent Zapdos stealing potential as well, because you can kind of stop enemy damage onto Zapdos with its Unite move. So for that reason, Mr. Mime is in B tier. Again, it doesn't have that sustained damage output, but a good Mr. Mime, with some well-placed barriers, you can really help out your team and try and carry games as a support. Greedent. Greedent is obnoxious. It really is obnoxious. I am going to put it into A tier. Do I want to put it into A tier? Or do I want to put it into S tier? I'm going to put it, so it should be around S tier, guys, but because this is solo queue, I'm going to put Greedent into A tier. I think that is just kind of the limit as far as defenders are concerned, in my opinion. I think that Greedent is just a phenomenally busted character right now. You know what? No, let's do it, guys. Let's do it. Greedent is in S tier. Let's be real. This character is busted, okay? Even as a defender, I gotta do it. I gotta put it in S tier. If you run Covet, you're obnoxious, and I respect you for it, because Covet is just so annoying to deal with. Just makes him unstoppable, makes it so he just bumps into everybody, just walks away from stuff that is no business walking away from. The Unite move is absolutely broken with Belch. You can just 100 to 0 Zapdoses with it. You can 100 to 0 teams with it. There's like very little counterplay to this character, and that's what makes it obnoxious, is like literally it just runs around you in circles, knocks you up, you can't CC it, and then it hits you with no no exaggeration, 18 belches that are in a cone that is really hard to dodge, and you basically have to walk away from it. That's the counterplay to Greedent right now. So Greedent is going to be an S tier. This character is just so annoying, and it certainly deserves some nerfs. Okay. Are we doing this, guys? Are we doing this? Putting Garchomp in D tier. Moving it out of Prayer Team is good tier, but just barely. And the reason being is it just has gotten so many buffs. It's gotten so many buffs that I feel like it's not so much its weaknesses are getting improved, it's that its strengths are just getting further amplified, and that's kind of pouring into the rest of the game. So the attack speed buff definitely helped. Just for its early clear speed. It's still predominantly a jungle character. If you play this thing in lane, you're going to lose. But if you can start to get online, you do a lot of sustained damage. You have great objective clearing potential. You have great farming potential. You have great 1v1 potential against the melee matchups. But the reality of the situation is that you have to get to that point. And very similar to Gardevoir, Gibble is just not good. Gabite is not that great. I usually recommend running the Dragon Dance Dragon Claw combo. Still think that's the best, but I just think that if you're playing solo queue, you could go and pick any of these other picks, have much more of an impact early on, and basically dumpster Garchomp for the rest of the game. So that's why he's got to be in D tier. But I'm moving him up just because the dude's gotten so many buffs. It's ridiculous, right? Talonflame can carry 1v9. This is by far the best solo queue character in the entire game right now, bar none. If you're not playing Talonflame, you're leaving points on the table. That's just the honest truth. Talonflame has no bad build paths. It has no bad item paths. It is just good across the board. You can build full tank, go that annoying score build that I have on my channel, and still deal massive amounts of damage and just wipe the enemy team. Fantastic objective taking potential, fantastic objective stealing potential, fantastic XP denial potential. It is insane at scoring because you can go and run Buddy Barrier and Score Shield and literally unite move down an entire lane and the enemy team can't stop you. Your movement speed is just too good. They have to rotate to deal with you. It's just like there's no weakness for this character. And so Talonflame is... I could talk about Talonflame all day long. This character is nuts right now. I would highly recommend playing Talonflame if you are playing solo queue. But who else we got here? Snorlax. Snorlax, I'm putting in C tier. The reason being is that even though Snorlax is a top tier support, top tier defender overall, this character is really nuts. From a team play perspective, the reality is that with the nerfs to Yawn, if you're going like a damage build on Snorlax, the damage output is not as good as it once was. And if you're going the full like supportive build, which is, you know, block and heavy slam, if your team member is not doing anything, you're gonna have a bad time. That's the reality of the situation. You basically just heavy slam and block, and you pray that your teammates can help you out. It's not in the pray your team is good tier quite yet because it still has that potential to go and, you know, maybe you can do a game-changing block and prevent the enemy team from doing anything, or, you know, hoping that your team actually, you know, follows up on a game-changing block. Block is just such a phenomenal ability, but I have to put it in the C tier, drop it down a tier, just because I think that Crustle and Blastoise, from a solo queue perspective, and Greedent especially, there's no reason why you would pick Snorlax in solo queue in particular if you have no idea who your teammates are. So Snorlax is getting dropped down. Lucario, I still think can carry 1v9 tier. This character got some nerfs that may or may not be nerfs. I still think it's just so good. It really doesn't have any weak points. It got bumped down a tiny bit because they nerfed its shield steadfast, so it has a bit of a longer cooldown, which is a good start, but overall it's still obnoxious to deal with in lane. It's just so good all around. There's really no way to punish this guy. You can go extreme speed, you can go power up punch, and he's still going to score in your face. He's just a really obnoxious character to deal with. It doesn't really have any perceived weaknesses to speak of. And because him and Charizard are so good right now, it kind of bumps all the other all-rounders down a bit. I would think that they would go and toss some more nerfs at this guy in the future, so just keep that in mind. And final on the list is Eldegoss. Eldegoss, I gotta put it in. Gotta put it in Pray Your Team is Good tier. Even though Eldegoss is probably one of the best defenders supports in the entire game. Right there with Blissy, in my opinion. In solo queue, you still, even the best Eldegoss players, I love you guys. I know you're going to comment on this and say, you're putting Eldegoss down there again. If you're in solo queue and you're playing as Eldegoss, I know you can still climb as Eldegoss, but you know the struggle of playing a support in solo queue. You know that if you are in lane, even if you're running that muscle band Eldegoss and you're trying to pepper the enemy team and support, you're still reliant on your teammates. That's just the reality of the support situation, guys. So that just about does it for the tier list. How long did we go here? 36 minutes, not too bad. Again, guys, a few minutes after this video drops, I will put that Gleam.io link in the description so you guys can go and participate in the US eShop gift card giveaway. I hope you guys enjoy that. I wish you the best of luck. Hopefully if we, I don't know what I'm going to do if we hit 30K before the giveaway ends. I don't know if I just add on more prizes or something like that. I have no idea. I'll probably just do a giveaway, another giveaway once we get to 30K, just so that everything, is fair and kept in line and everything like that. But thank you guys so much for all the support. I wish you the best of luck on the new ranked season. I'm hoping there's going to be some nice rank changes. Make sure if you haven't already, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, and hit the subscribe button. And that's going to be it for me. Please let me know if you disagree with any of my choices. I'm sure there will be some disagreements. But this is just, I feel pretty good about this tier list overall. Just because there are some characters that are just so overwhelmingly powerful right now in solo queue. It's a mistake not to take them. And I just think that defenders and supports overall, if you are playing with a group of randoms, you're just going to have a bad time. So I can't in good conscience recommend that, even though you do need a support and a defender on your team. I just want that to be made known, okay? I'm not saying that you don't. But thank you guys so much for all the support. I really do appreciate it. We got some great things coming for this channel, and I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. Thank you so much. Adamocles out.